Hello everybody, today it's going to be another presidential matchup. This time it's going to be Jared Polis for the Democrats up against Glenn Youngkin for the Republicans. This was suggested to me in the comments. This is two governors going at it, Colorado versus Virginia. Seems like a real fun one. It's going to be difficult, but let's get started. We'll go through the states and then we'll talk more about it at the end. First up is going to be Alaska, and that's going to be over 10 points, safe for Youngkin. Hawaii is going to be safe for Polis. Let's go back up to Washington, Oregon, and California. Those are going to be over 10 points, safe for Polis. The next state is Nevada. That's a tricky one. I think it's up for grabs for either side. In this matchup, I have it as a tilt for Jared Polis. Idaho and Utah, safe for Youngkin. Now we've got Arizona. This is a state that's become harder and harder for the Republicans to win. Glenn Youngkin's popularity, I think, would be enough for him to pull it back into the Republican column, and I have him winning it by about 1 to 2 points, leans for Youngkin. Montana, Wyoming, safe for Youngkin. Jared Polis' home state of Colorado is next, and that, of course, has to be safe for Polis. Now we've got New Mexico. It borders Colorado, and I think it will go likely for Polis. North Dakota, South Dakota, safe for Youngkin. Nebraska at large is going to be safe for Youngkin. The 2nd district, that is the more competitive district. It's trended toward the left. Youngkin probably has one of the better chances for the Republicans to be able to flip that district back, and I actually have him winning it by a tilt margin, but it could go either way. Kansas, safe for Youngkin. Oklahoma, safe for Youngkin. Texas, that's going to be likely for Youngkin. I think he would have enough suburban appeal to keep that over a 5-point margin. Now we've got Minnesota. That's going to be about 5 to 6 points, likely for Jared Polis. Iowa is going to be likely for Youngkin. Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, those are going to be safe for Youngkin. Now we've got Wisconsin, another state, could go either way. I tried to think about it. In the end, I settled on a tilt for Youngkin. Illinois, safe for Polis. Michigan, another tough state, right in the Rust Belt. It's a little bit bluer than some of the other states. In the end, I settled on about a 1 to 2 point margin, leans for Jared Polis. Indiana, safe for Youngkin. Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, safe for Youngkin. How about down in Florida? This one is going to go to Youngkin. I think the margin would probably be mid-single digits, so I have it as likely for Youngkin. Now let's go to Georgia. This is similar to Arizona, where it's trended toward the Democrats. The suburbs around Atlanta, that's where the GOP has lost a lot of support. Youngkin, he's the guy who would have won here easily 10, 20 years ago. In this matchup, I think he'd be able to bring it back by a couple of points, and I have him winning it by about 1.5 to 2.5 points, so it's going to go leans for Youngkin. South Carolina, safe for Youngkin. North Carolina, that does border Virginia, but it's still going to go leans for Youngkin. Could be about 4 to 5 points. Now let's go to Ohio. This is going to be probably high single digits, at least 7 points, likely for Youngkin. West Virginia, safe for Youngkin. Now let's go to Maine at large. This will be about 5.5 to 6 points, likely for Polis. The 1st district, that's going to be safe for Polis. The 2nd district, that's going to be over 5 points, likely for Youngkin. Let's go to New Hampshire. Here's another state where I think it could go either way. It's a little bit more higher educated. That's going to help Jared Polis, but I don't think Glenn Youngkin is a bad fit. But in the end, I still think the lean of the state is a little bit too much for Youngkin to win it, and I have it going to Polis by a tilt margin. Now we've got the safe blue states: Vermont, New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, and Washington, D.C. Those are all going to be safe for Polis. How about Pennsylvania? Well, I think this would be another state that would be considered a toss-up, but I don't do toss-ups, so every little bit of voter turnout matters. The margins in all the counties are going to matter. I think it would be very, very close, under a 1-point margin, so it's basically a coin flip, but I did settle on a tilt for Polis. Now we've got the very last state, and that is Glenn Youngkin's home state of Virginia, and we know the state has trended away from the Republicans over the last 15 years. Glenn Youngkin is popular, and that does make this state competitive. Now, it all depends on how popular he would actually be on election day, so I do think it's possible for him to win this state. But given the lean of the state in recent national cycles for president and for Senate, I still think Glenn Youngkin would come up just short here. I think it would be under a 1-point margin, similar to Pennsylvania, and I'm not counting Youngkin out here. I just had to make a decision, and I picked a tilt for Polis. So that's the final map, and that comes out to 273 for Youngkin, 265 for Polis. Youngkin wins it without his home state of Virginia. Polis barely loses this thing, but I think he's capable of winning it. I also think Youngkin is probably capable of flipping a couple more states, potentially the usual states of Nevada, Pennsylvania, Virginia, possibly even in New Hampshire, and Polis, maybe he flips Wisconsin, Arizona, or Georgia. So I think this is a pretty great matchup. Jared Polis, he's a little bit more of an under-the-radar governor. You don't hear a lot about him. I think he's a good fit for Colorado. Nationally, he would have to get his name recognition up. I don't think he would fit perfectly in with the Democratic establishment or the progressive base. I think he would blend both sides. That's probably going to help him. I think he would do reasonable in the suburbs. Glenn Youngkin, I think, would also do reasonable in the suburbs, and Glenn Youngkin as well. He would blend support from the Trump base as well as the establishment. So I think this would be a fierce, heated battle, trying to get their base to turn out, as well as competing hard for those suburbs, especially around Phoenix, Philadelphia, Atlanta, Milwaukee, and even in the D.C. suburbs. That's where Glenn Youngkin is going to want to try to claw back a couple more points so he could try to flip the state. It would be difficult. Any number of things could sway this election by a couple of points. We really don't know what the environment would be like at the time. We don't know how these two would run their national campaigns, which issues they would actually run on. As far as charisma, I think they're both kind of equal in their own way. I personally don't think Glenn Youngkin is really all that charismatic, but I guess he's been likable enough. He's maintained popularity. Polis, I have a similar view on. Youngkin has become a little bit more nationally known, I think, than Polis, because that Virginia governor's election a couple of years ago was much more significant, but a lot of similar factors come into play. How important and how hard would these candidates run on things like crime, immigration, identity politics, taxes, the environment, abortion, guns, etc.? Those are just some of the usual issues, and that could affect some of these states. And the Rust Belt, I think, is up for grabs. It's hard to say what would happen, but Youngkin was able to claim Wisconsin, and you're probably going to disagree on a couple of these states. This is just what I settled on. Let me know in the comments, do you mostly agree with this map, or would you change 4 or 5 of these states? Let me know down below. On your way out, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next video.